Record. Okay. Okay. Now we have a left-hand record. Thank you, Vilma. How's it, Wayne? Good to have you and Liz with us as well. All waiting for our load shedding.
Hello, hello.
Good. Okay, so this topic was very relevant for me this week, as all my topics are. So I hope it actually helps you guys out as well. And so what we're going to be looking at is, how does the brain store memories? And so when a memory is created, information flows from the cortex. Now, we all know about the cortex. We've heard about the cortex. But the part of the brain rich in nerve cells to the hippocampus, the central switching point for memories in the brain. The information flows in the opposite direction when we retrieve a memory. So that's the last time I'm going to read to you. There's a couple of other things that I'm going to read that are going to come on the screen. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to read it and then to tell me how you interpret what you're going to be. So the focus tonight is going to be on the hippocampus, because not many people talk about the hippocampus, and I didn't even really realize what a hippocampus was until I started thinking, why did I experience certain things prior to going into surgery, and what was my memory triggers? Why was my brain, why was my anxiety so high? What were all the reasons behind it? And so I started searching for myself today, because certain things happened at certain times, and eventually my anxiety was like over the roof. And yeah, fair enough, it's only been my second operation in my whole life, but still, what are the memory triggers and why they're triggering in us? So then I looked up what the hippocampus was, and there we go. So your hippocampus is part of the limbic system in each temporal lobe, okay, responsible for processing of long-term memory and emotional responses. It not only assists with the storage of long-term memories, but it also responsible for the memory of the location of objects or people. We would not even be able to remember where our house is without the work of the hippocampus. And the interesting, hey? And so this hippocampus is actually stipulated or situated there behind your earlobe, and it looks like a seahorse.
Yeah,
that's quite interesting, eh? That it looks like a seahorse.
Outline of the ear, eh?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is there's one on each side. So the next slide, I'm now going to ask you to read, and then if somebody can tell me what they get out of the next slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Who would like to share?
It's a plastic and vulnerable structure.
Isn't that interesting?
The word plastic sort of thrills me.
Yeah, and how would God make us with something plastic in our heads?
Yeah.
Why plastic? Why not tissue? So
okay.
For me,
I'm going to look into this.
I think you must. I think we need to have some doctors look into this. Some real doctors, not some leadership doctors, some real ones.
No, not real one. Medical.
The medical one, yes. So Vilma, I'd love to know more about this, because this is the first time I've actually even heard of the hippocampus. And then when I looked at it to myself, it looks like a seahorse. Why a seahorse? I also want to go a little bit into why a seahorse, the shape of it. And then again, it's a plastic and vulnerable structure that gets damaged by a variety of stimuli. Anybody else want to add anything there?
Did they specify what kind of damage, Michelle?
Yeah, we're going to definitely look at that. I couldn't not go further into the where the damage comes from. So here we all think like this memory bank that we've got in our brain structure is, right at the back or the front or the left or the right or whatever it is. And yet I never even heard of a hippocampus in humans. Okay, so it's for me was quite interesting. So let's look at the next slide and you guys can read that.
That's got a definite pathway.
Yeah. But plastic, that's interesting.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so who would like to comment on that? Okay, let's see who's typing. So if there are two, the word hippocampus, plural. Maybe it's what? Hippocampi.
Yeah. Sis.
Yeah. Okay.
It sounds like Alzheimer's, episodic.
Yes, episodic memory. Isn't it interesting how that it would affect episodic memory? So I thought that was actually quite interesting. How it's not just all your memory, it's sections of it that can be affected.
Yeah. It's also like you get the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Where Alzheimer's is the early onset of dementia, which is a disease, and dementia is a condition. It's a deterioration, almost natural deterioration of your nervous system, your brain function. So this almost sounds like the same kind of things, because it's a long-term episodic memory, but the precise functional contribution remains the subject of several competing theories, which Alzheimer's and dementia also has.
Yeah. So what is episodic?
Episodes.
Yeah.
Specific spaces, your timeline in your memory. I haven't got my video on. Let me show you what's behind me. Can you see it?
Yes, you're bored. Oh, wow.
My timeline.
Your timeline. Oh, wow. So, yeah, so it's a recollection of personal experiences that contain information of where and when something happens. So it's your episodes in your life, your timeline in your life. And some of them, the episodic memory could be triggered by different triggers at different times. So
smells.
Yeah, and why would I go into such anxiety before? Okay, it was a build-up of events, but the anxiousness before going in for the operation was surreal. It was something else was triggering the behavior to such an extent that I was
unknown. It's the unknown, Michelle. Like when one of my friends goes into theatre in one of the hospitals that I frequent, I go into theatre with them, and it makes an enormous difference because there's something familiar with you that you actually can hold on to.
And nowadays with COVID, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Nowadays with COVID, you're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, I get to go into all those funny places. So,
and then you get somebody who says, "I'm here to care for you." And when you say, "Listen, I need to sit up," they'd say, "No." And I'm like, eventually, at the end of it all, I just said to you, "Don't you get irritated with me? I mean, if you're here to care for me, then you touch me and you say, Mrs. Van Tonda, you cannot sit up now. Just take a deep breath. You don't say to me, no, and treat me like, and then let's start caring, Yeah. So all these things, which pushes the anxiety up even more, because now you feel like you're a misbehaving child, and all you're just trying to do is survive through, as you quite rightly say, the unknown.
Yeah. It's like a ship on the high seas.
It is. It really is. Okay. So now we're going to look at insights from spatial processing, which is the taking the episodic a little bit deeper. And it's quite a long sentence. I'm going to ask you to just read it, because if you read it, you'll absorb it more.
Yeah, it's a picture. Yeah, and everybody does it in a different way, no?
Everybody does it in a different way.
Goes with your personality, your whole your setup, the way you are used to function, your familiar processes, because everything unknown that happens to you, you try and place on that very timeline, on that very, it's called the Kairos moment, né?
Yeah.
It's sort of a linear time, but then within that time, there's a specific timing. And that is for such a time as this, Esther. And that's what you had yesterday with your carpal tunnel for such a time as this. You can put that in that space, and you do that within your capacity of how you deal with things.
Exactly.
And that's why you get some people follow orders to the T. Your personality is not like that.
Not like that, no.
Don't tell Michelle van Tonder, no, you tell her, Mrs. van Tonder, don't do this right now because
it's not good for you.
Amen.
You know,
and
or
this
it's
is
not
why
healthy.
it's not good for you. And then Mrs. van Tonder listens to you.
Exactly. But if you just tell me no, guess what my natural reaction is to no? It's to rebel against it.
Whoever's telling it to you has got a problem.
I totally thought, I eventually said to her, don't you get irritated with me? I did it then when I woke up, and I said to her, please, I just need to sit up. Now, no one asked me, do I suffer from claustrophobia? Okay, which I suffer highly from claustrophobia. Now you've got somebody taking my arm this way, somebody taking my arm this way, pushing things in front of me. And I'm just saying, give me my space back. I needed to get my spatial back. And if they allowed me that, I would have been able to just go, okay, I'm in control of my environment. But I wasn't in control of my environment, and they didn't care about the fact that I wasn't in control of my environment. So therefore, the imagery, which we do visualizations, we do imageries, and this is why also visualization is so healthy, which George and Tessa are really good at, because we start replacing bad visions. We can replace them with good pictures, with healthy pictures, and those kind of things. And so, anybody else want to add anything that they read from that sentence? Oh, there's some more there.
That site is a lovely site.
Oh, awesome! Thank you, Sonia.
Now, Michelle, I don't want let me put it this way: the people that don't know routes or that don't know a route and must use GPS, so they also have some damage on the hippocampus.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to point this out, is that we're all working in environments with people to a certain degree. And everybody's compass, okay, so your hippocampus, your compass, is all completely different. And it's not just personalities, it's experiences, it's imageries that are sitting in our heads, be them right or wrong, they're relevant for us. Therefore, however, the hippocampus is often needed to meditate behaviors that allow such learning to take place, such as when learning a new route. And it is about, you know, and you're not prepared, and everybody's just walking past you, or in life, people bypass you all the time, and then they expect something from you all of a sudden, and we wonder why we get the reactions and the responses that we do. And it's all to do with something that's sitting someplace in this little seahorse of ours that we have in our heads. Anybody else want to say? Okay. Okay, here's another one for you to read. We're definitely going to look at left brain and right brain after this. I knew you were going to ask that, Leonie. All right, so let's look at this. This is one model, a BBB model, that suggests that it's required for both short-term and long-term memory for some types of information, imagery, And also your mind doesn't know the difference between what is fiction and what is real. So that's why when you do visualization and meditation, it is about putting things in place.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the three different areas that these fall into. Good. Vilma's reading the article for us, so she can give us some more information on it. Thank you, Vilma. Okay.
It's a ridge of gray matter tissue. So it's basically brain tissue. And if you look at a brain, it's almost, it does look like a plasticky kind of, and it sort of bounces back at you, tissue. So that they describe it as plastic is quite, we can imagine that, although of course it is not plastic.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But it's a type of, it looks like it. So the right hippocampus plays a critical role in spatial memory, specifically more in the older, while the role of the left hippocampus's verbal memory is more prominent. So there we're starting to look at that right and left brain there. Damage to the hippocampus can occur through many causes, including head trauma, stroke, status epilepticus, and Alzheimer's.
Status epilepticus is when you stay in an epileptic fit.
Okay. Yeah. So there we go. So it's any major trauma can affect these, and that's where you possibly, like sometimes if somebody has a very serious head trauma, they have memory loss. Or loss of memory. And then again, what you were saying earlier on Alzheimer's, it's memory loss.
Yeah.
And it's important. So, okay, let's have a look at left and right brain now. So the theory is that people are either left-brained or right-brained, meaning that one side of their brain is dominant. If you're mostly analytical and methodical in your thinking, you're said to be left-brained. If you tend to be more creative and artistic, you're thought to be right-brained. So there it is there, your left brain being analyzing logic, ideas, facts, math, and training. Then you've got your creativity side, which is your right brain, which is intuition, creativity, arts, creation, feeling, and imagination. And this is where people say that sometimes left brain people have got no feelings because they put feelings into the other side, but it's not actually true. They do have feelings, they just display them differently.
You know, there is a bridge between the left and the right brain. And, and this is what I believe, at least about me, that sometimes my left brain squeezes into the right brain and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot tell you whether I am actually left or right brain.
And I think it's circumstantial as well. And I do think that they quite rightly, they're not, it's like our hands are left and right, but they're not independent of each other. We can still bring them together to create what we got to create. And so our brain does that as well. And it's, you know, for example, if you're now brainstorming and your left brain, you're brainstorming and you're coming up with ideas, for me, that's actually links to creativity.
Yep.
So how can you you can't have ideas without an element of creativity. So I think that's where the two cross over. And then, you know, we do think logically, but nothing says that a right brain person, if you think about being artistic and you want to paint a painting, you need to be very methodical and artistic about where you want to create, what you want to create, spatial wise, dimension wise. I mean, some people, if they're copying something, they'll do the blocks, the squares, copy it, and all the rest of it. So you're using your creativity to create something, but you're doing it in a very, very logical, mathematical way, actually. So the two do overlap a lot. Although I think just in general, we might have a tendency to function more in either the left brain or the right brain on a daily basis. but
Yeah.
nothing says that we can't cross over. I think a lot of us cross over. And also it depends where we are emotionally as of to where we function most.
Yeah, at there. Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm highly emotional, I function in the facts. It's about the facts. It's about, don't even deviate from that. It's the fact. This is the fact. I stick to the fact and I'm not going to deviate from the fact. But if I'm in a fun-loving, creative mood, then I'm easy. I'm the first one to come in with creativity. And that's why I tap into my team a lot when I want to brainstorm. I go and I say, okay, fine, let's talk, because I know a lot of them function in the right brain more so than I do. And if I've got a task to complete, I'm going to go to the left brain. So it's very interesting how, whereas Anthony, on the other hand, is very right-brained. And sometimes I just wonder where his imagination even goes. But and I always say to him, it's all brains and no common sense, because I'm not getting anything decent out of his head. But yeah, anybody else want to add anything to left brain, right brain? Yeah, my perspective.
But I also think it's in what situation or what environment you are in. That also depends on what side of the brain you're going to use.
Yes, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And sometimes it takes a left brainer. Let's say, for example, you do have to do a brainstorming session. It'll take a left brain a little bit longer to get into the swing until they can find where we're going with this. And then they will come up with those creative ideas as well. Are you going to join us here, Ant? The creative ideas and
That's right. Team is so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So important when we're talking about utilizing the gifts of left and right brain and all the rest of it.
Sorry guys, but this took precedence. Okay.
Don't worry, we have a real doctor on board, a GP doctor, so she's been helping us all the way through this process.
Wonderful.
Vilma's been helping us a lot.
Excellent.
And seeing it all through. Okay, so before we asks what we got out of this, let's just go to the last one, which is treating the hippocampus brain injury, helping the brain to repair itself. And they suggest 3 very simple things. Exercise, particularly aerobics, is one of the best ways to boost your body up, and it improves so anything to do with cardio, to get the whole thing going, which is very good. Stimulate your brain. Keeping your brain stimulated can also increase. So that would be what stimulates your brain. I used to, until I got this, play games, the strategic games that would stimulate my brain. And now I need to think of something else to do, because I actually, since I stopped playing the Call of Duty with strategic game, I felt that my head is getting foggy. My mind is getting foggy. I'm not as sharp in my thinking that I used to. So now I need to find out what, and when I looked at this, I thought, I'm lacking stimulating my brain again. I'm becoming brain dead, as it were. So what else must I do now in actual fact, to do that? And then change in your diet, because your dietary foods, different foods, it will affect us in different ways. And it's important for us to realize that.
Can I just throw the cat among the pigeons and ask?
You always do.
Input from people. How about some creative ways? How do you really stimulate your brain? Let's hear.
Talk to Anthony van Tonder.
That's enough stimulation. You're quite right.
I want you guys, I've got a few ideas in my head, of course, but I want you to say, if I give you the task, I would like you in the next 3 months to have a focused program that is purpose-driven to stimulate your brain. What are the kind of things that you would be considering? Let's hear some suggestions, guys.
Rephrase that.
Like playing Sudoku could stimulate your brain, those numbers.
Sudoku.
Yeah, that one.
Sudoku, yeah.
I do the word games.
Word
That's
games.
right.
My mother used to always do those crossword puzzles, monkey
Crossword
puzzles.
What is the board game? The one where I need a dictionary to confirm what I'm...
Scrabble.
Scrabble.
I love Scrabble.
There we go. Costa loves Scrabble too.
What else?
Books.
In fact, I like any board games.
Me too. I love
And I
board
like-
games.
And I love card games too, because I
But
like
hold on, a
cheating.
board
Yes.
game, we're talking about brain stimulation. Games don't necessarily stimulate the brain. They might stimulate the fun. You know what
But it
happens?
depends on the board game itself. Like
True.
Scrabble's the board.
But you need strategy.
Yes.
How to upthink the other.
Outthinking
Like,
the other. Yes.
What is that game that you and I with the marbles that you move? What do you call that thing?
Abalone.
Chinese checkers.
Yeah, Chinese checkers, abalone.
Like abalone and chess.
Yeah.
Those are brain
Yeah.
stimulant kind
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between playing chess and speed chess, what will that do for you in terms of brain development and brain stimulation?
I think you got to do the one before you can do the other.
Yeah, I think
I
so
mean, you
too.
got to have the knowledge to play chess, to be able to do speed chess.
But there's a
And not-
distinct
Yeah.
benefit in terms of brain development of playing chess and playing speed chess.
I think speed chess is just competition, and playing chess itself is strategically outwitting your opponent.
Performance under pressure. Okay.
Yeah.
It actually stimulates performance under pressure, which stimulates the brain more. When
Yeah.
you are put in any
Yes.
situation, you need to be forced to think quicker.
Block puzzles.
What are you showing there, Liz? What is that?
It was about.
Oh, block puzzles. Oh,
it's like
yes,
the
Rubik's
cube.
duck, the cube.
Yeah.
Like a
Yes.
Rubik's
So these
cube
are
pattern.
loose blocks.
Rubik.
Loose blocks, and you pull them apart, and then you've got to put them back together again. Yes.
100%.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I use one practically every day, and that is to remember people's names.
It's true.
That,
Oh, yeah.
I'm very serious. That is the brain stimulator that I use, and I challenge myself if I walk into a room, there are 20 new people, I challenge myself to get to know every single person's name before I leave. But there's a process that I follow of how I do it. I can do 70 names in half an hour.
Mm.
I remember the faces better than the names.
Yeah, me too. Me
Okay,
too.
but it's that brain stimulation. It is possible.
Yeah.
People say to me,
Yeah.
"Oh, I never remember people's names." I said, "Okay, you can, but you need to learn how to do it."
Yeah.
Another way is remembering.
By association.
Association.
Yeah.
Mm.
I remember the face, then the circumstance where I met them.
Wow, you're only 38 an hour. That's excellent. Wow.
Very good. Very good.
I can't do 2 in a week.
Who are you again?
Dory.
Wow.
Stories, yes.
Stories, yeah.
Stories.
Mhm.
Brain stimulating. William?
Reading books, if you have a passion or something you want to live out, to
Yeah.
read a book and learn more.
Quite correct. However, let's talk about book reading. Let's be a little bit creative. How do you read a book in order to stimulate your brain? There's specific ways you can do it.
By going do it practical, live it out after you've started reading it. Yeah, that's
Like make
very
action
important.
Understanding.
steps after each chapter.
Application. Ever heard of the spider diagram, everybody?
Mm.
Spider diagram. That sounds like mind mapping.
Yeah, mind mapping.
Same as mind mapping. You mind map the activity that you learn from the book. You do the practical application. We call it mirroring. You mirror image what you learn and what you read into your life, and then you do a spider diagram or a mind map in terms of how to apply that to your life to make it practical. That is brain stimulating. That forces your brain to, because remember you asked the left brain, right brain. Is that left or right brain?
Which is
What I've just described now.
mind mapping.
Right.
That's the right one.
Right brain, because you have to be innovative, you have to be creative.
Yeah.
That's why brainstorming, facilitated correctly, is one of the most effective ways to get people to feel that they're part of the solution.
100%.
Because incorrect brainstorming is when people go, "Oh, that's a crap idea." Well, what are you even thinking about? And people will immediately clam up. But if everybody's ideas, doesn't matter how small it is, come up, and then it plays a role.
And Anthony, there's two different ways of reading books. If you tell someone to go and read a book, they will just go and read it and nothing will happen.
Correct.
If you take a book off a shelf because of a definite purpose, for example, if you have a passion to read something to learn more, then you will go and practically implement it. And also if your adrenaline production lifts, or it's more, and that stimulates the blood flow in your brain, and the blood flow is more oxygen, and with that you have a recuperation of your with the recovery as well of your brain.
Now, one of the ways that we call pyrotechniques, because pyrotechniques is where you actually rob somebody of a certain capacity. Like, for instance, a bar game is a pyrotechnique where people drink shooters to see who can remember most. Is actually the negative enforcement of pushing the brain to its next level.
Sure.
But don't worry, guys in the army, we've got this in tape because we do that a lot under pressure.
I'm boring. I've never done that.
Yeah, no.
Okay, but so there are many ways. But what I'm saying to you is, look what has just happened in the past 5 minutes of us discussing how can you literally stimulate your brain.
Yeah.
And not one of us mentioned the obvious topic, which we don't even have to mention.
Therefore, it's not obvious.
What is so obvious?
Yeah,
Only
exactly.
to you, or
I wasn't talking about Scrabble.
It's not stimulating your brain.
Oh, yes, it is.
You know what? My husband must go to another planet. It's definitely not from my planet.
I'm on his planet.
Good, Billy. Somebody that's in the clan. The clan has spoken.
No, dear. Another planet.
you know what I've learned about myself in the last couple of weeks, that I'm you can see the board behind me. I've actually committed to doing a timeline, and that's my timeline. And I struggle to remember many things out of my youth because of different reasons.
Yes.
But what I can do is I can draw pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done on the timeline, I've drawn pictures in spaces in time. And then on the sticky notes, I then write a story about the picture. And that almost becomes a third person.
Yes.
Until it sinks in from the head to the heart.
Yeah.
Have you done Dale Carnegie? That sounds like Dale Carnegie.
No, I'm doing a thing. It's called Your Story Matters.
Yes.
Okay.
With a Leslie Leyland Field.
Yes.
Because I have been asked several times to write my memoirs, but I don't know how. And then somebody said that they'll help me write it, but I want to write it because it's my story. So then somehow this chickie came up on one of my posts, and I contacted her. And so I have joined a class with her in Your Story Matters. And it's very interesting.
Well, the whole TED Talks works off the principle of storytelling.
Yeah.
TED Talks originated because Simon Sinek helped people understand the art of storytelling. He was one of the first that was on it. And from there, it just started snowballing as a methodology to stimulate interest and stimulate activity in the brain. I can tell you, Simon Sinek is one of my favorite speakers today.
Yeah,
I can listen to him. He can just speak about a frog that is about to cross the road, but he does it in such a way, man, I want to hear what's going to happen to this poor frog.
Yeah.
It's Simon who?
Simon Sinek.
Sinek.
S-I-N-E-K.
Brilliant.
Will change your life, I promise.
Sinek, okay.
Yeah. So next week you're going to say to me, and that's the best gift you gave me, that guy's name. I'll tweet you that.
That is, now, is it my left or my right brain?
Okay. Expand on the question.
The fact that I'm going to read that, I'm going to look it up and I'm going to read it.
It's both. It's the curiosity of the right brain, but it's the analytical side that wants to be in control.
As I say, they mesh over. So it's no, you are dominant in one, but you definitely mesh all the time in both. And I don't think we should judge people on left and right brain.
You get that, you know, that Play-Doh sort of stuff that you flat against the wall and it sort of runs down
Yeah.
and then you shape it.
Slime.
Now, I always see my two halves of the brain, and the one squashes and the other one sort of almost like tries to expand, and then it squashes back. So then the two sort of, I don't know whether that makes a picture or makes sense to anyone, but then you force the one side of the brain to function because you actually put pressure on it.
Mm.
So you function there and then it pushes back. So the creativity pushes back to the factual and the factual pushes to the creativity.
Your proof is behind you. I can see that what you're saying actually is real for you. A guy like John
Yeah.
Maxwell actually has two color desks. He's got a blue desk and he's got a yellow desk. At the yellow desk, he sits there and he does creative work. At his blue desk, he sits and he does tasks.
Ah.
That's the way he operates in his office. Because
Yeah, he's got
remember,
2 desks in his office.
he writes on a daily basis. So where does he write? Blue desk or yellow desk?
Yellow desk.
No.
Yellow desk if he writes news stories. Blue desk if he writes instructions. Just
Now
as
you're going to make me buy blue Post-its.
Yeah, blue and yellow Post-its.
okay. Anybody else? Because we've heard from Vilma and we've heard from Willie. We've seen shown from Liz.
And he has some symptoms if your hippocampus is not working correctly. You can identify if your hippocampus just from the article that Sonia posted. Just some of the symptoms that we can see that the hippocampus is being affected. Okay, and that would be, for example, memory loss that disrupts daily life, such as appointments or events. Like you forget an event or something, it just means that your hippocampus is not functioning at its full capacity, which means you're not stimulating it. Difficulty solving problems or planning, confusions about place and time, difficulty completing familiar tasks. So you know that you've got to go and do something, but you get there and you're like, how do I do this again? It just means that you're not stimulating, and it's our responsibility to stimulate that hippocampus. Difficulty with images and spatial relationships, problems with words, either speaking or writing. So this weekend, I was having a conversation, and I'm pretty good with my words. And there was just so many words, I just could not even remember. Eventually, I just said, I don't know what's happening. I cannot think. And I cannot actually say the words that I actually want to say. So I picked up that I had a problem with that just this weekend, and speaking to a normal person just about a normal subject, but I just couldn't get certain words out. And it started frustrating me a lot. Misplacing things and you can't be able to retrace them. That's a given thing when you put your keys somewhere where you shouldn't put your keys somewhere. Okay. Decreasement in judgment, social, professional withdrawal, and changes in mood or personality. And so I noticed a few of these things for myself were out of sync. And just when I read this just in this last 2 weeks, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not looking after this hippocampus, of course, which I did not even know existed. So it is a matter of getting back into right exercise. What are the 3 things? Right exercise, dietary food must be right, and there was a third one.
Brain stimulation.
The brain stimulation. And I just realized that, it's amazing that if we want to have this longevity of life, that we stay outside of the Alzheimer's and dementia route, we need to start saying, whoa, what are the things that are triggering for us? Sure, he's got quite a few books that Simon Sinek's read, but just YouTube.
There's many books. Why don't
Sure.
you give me a list? I'll tell you what the top 10 are.
Just YouTube.
Okay.
Go to YouTube and type in Simon Sinek and join his channel.
Okay. It starts with Y. That's the first one that caught my eye.
I was going to say that's
ever.
that's his most popular. It starts with Y.
I can tell you that when Michelle and I used to do training, and I used to do training with corporate CEOs, a lot of my material came from learning from Simon in terms of his practical application.
Yeah.
And it used to wow people. And I'll just say, and I can't take the credit, it was Simon Sinek
Yeah.
from TED Talk.
Yeah. No.
He is just an incredible communicator.
Yeah. He's got a really bag of tricks with regards to all these different types of books. The Golden Circle.
Yeah,
That was brilliant. The Golden Circle is the why, the how, the what. I've learned so much.
Dirty
from-
Rivals.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's written some amazing things. And when you hear him talk, it's just like, he's just one of our most, and he speaks so
Eloquently.
eloquently and also with authority on his subject. He doesn't, and you can challenge him, and no, this is what he's learned. So I've joined his YouTube channel and I listen to him every now and again. I
Yeah.
think he's really good.
I've subscribed.
I mean,
Awesome.
like
Awesome.
the last thing I can say, because you guys are on this call because of your need to be developed. The truth is, you need to have at least 5 mentors in your life. This is one of your mentors. Michelle van Tonna is mentoring us in terms of the mind being stimulated to the next level. Because this is really mindset application, what we're busy learning here. But if you really want to develop, you need to have chosen 4 or 5 people that will speak into your life. You don't have to physically sit with them. Like Simon Sinek was one of my mentors.
Yeah.
He didn't even know it, but he was. Okay.
The other one that we listened to that was very good was that Brooks guy that talks like
Fraser Brooks.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's a nutcase.
Yeah, no, he's a crazy dude, but yeah, Fraser Brooks.
But he's got, he's got his lane, in a specific lane. Fraser Brooks is very good, very stimulating. So here's my challenge to you.
Yeah.
Who's mentoring you? Each
You.
person, you need to go and make a list for yourself. Who's mentoring you? And I'm going to ask you, have you covered all 5 areas of life? Physical, spiritual, financial, social, and emotional. One of the biggest problems is men never have an emotional coach.
Yeah.
Big
very
mistake.
seldom.
Because EQ, emotional quotient, is one of the biggest things that take men to a higher place in organizations.
Yeah.
You can only grow that big if your EQ is low. Unless if you starve your weakness, that means your EQ is low, and therefore you get a person alongside you whose EQ is high. Then that will help you temporarily. But yeah, those are the 5 areas for you to say, who's mentoring me for what reason? Okay.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate to go through the information with Michelle prior to tonight. So at least I'm totally on.
He's happy that my hippocampus was working tonight.
Yeah. I like it. Your research was good. All right. So let me like always, what did you get out of tonight? And I'm going to ask with Wayne and Leslie in top right. What was your takeaway tonight for you?
I think learning or remembering after having studied psychology and all that brain stuff many years ago, forgetting about it, but that the hippocampus have got certain functions that it's got to do. And I know for sure that Friday night motorbike is not a happy memory for me. So I know that I've stored it away and it's hiding there.
Wow.
But it's definitely, there's different sections, which is episodical that
Yes.
is definitely hiding.
Wow.
So I'll have to write them down and get them on a timeline like Wilma's doing or something
Yes.
to get rid of it or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've just signed up as well. Subscribe to Simon so
That
we
was
can
really
do
good.
this. Okay.
Well
And
done,
then
Liz.
we listen to John Maxwell as well, quite a lot. And I keep reading some of his stuff, so it's refreshing all the time. So we do have 2 mentors and you guys, obviously. Thank you very much for that.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Thank you, Liz. That was powerful.
That's
Wayne?
very powerful.
Yeah, I definitely operate more left brain. I struggle with quite a like mind mapping. That's I battle with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think with that system at all. Yeah, so it's also just remembering, because I studied the things about the hippocampus also many decades ago.
Many
and-
decades ago. Yeah.
I just want to double check in your background. Did anybody come up with the power of music to stimulate the operation of the hippocampus. Did you guys
I
get
did
get-
because
No, we didn't.
I study
did-
with music.
I studied additional play therapy for children with learning problems and things
Mhm.
like that. So through music and play, that was definitely to re-stimulate and create new neuron paths for learning for the children that did have problems. But I benefited so much from that. It was amazing. And
Awesome.
there's still certain music now that when I listen to it immediately, I'm back there, and it just,
Correct.
or even as I said to Wayne the other day, when the rain came and the thunder and lightning, that's my happy space.
Yeah.
Just that sound, the smell, everything is there. That's good, happy memories. So that's also
Awesome.
Great, because obviously the use of the music, like in a restaurant, when it's just about closing time, without you realizing, they turn up the music and they start playing terrible music. But you don't realize it because you're trying to have a conversation. You start to talk louder, but you become subconsciously irritated so that you can leave. That's why they do it.
Yeah. Wayne? No, you did say.
Yeah, I haven't got anything more to say.
You
Thank
just
you.
said, okay, cool.
Okay, Willie, what did you take out tonight?
I'm a right brainer, and I've taken up that if a left brainer is under stress, they enter my right brain space.
Really. Oh, you're funny.
It's interesting. I long ago, when I studied medicine, we did the brain and I did not know that the hypothalamus was two sides, or the
Both sides,
hippocampus. Hippocampus. The hypothalamus is in the middle,
Yes.
and from there it was
Because they
because
often
that is part
associated with each other. Eh?
hormones, hormones and stimulation of that. But also, if you look at the seahorse in Neisner, for example, it's a very big part of in the nature of connecting this circle, the what do you call it, to keep the natural ecosystem in place. Yeah. And it's very sensitive to any changes from outside, and and it seems to me this is also sensitive in a person's life. If you speak bad about someone, or and they absorb it, that this is a sensitive part. And also, if it moves, it's the cilia. It's the cilia that moves it. The seahorse as it moves. I don't know if you've looked at one. And every time you do this with your fingers, Michelle, I see the cilia of how it moves, because that is, if it moves, it moves some. Yeah, but that is just when I saw your fingers, it's that movement.
And the Greek word for seahorse is hippocampus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Take that. Okay.
Nice one.
Vilma, seeing that you're saying, yeah, what did you take out tonight?
Well, I have decided that my left and right brain, that I hop from one to the other as the situation asks for it, and this just, I mean, this is now my picture thing. To me, it feels like my left and right brain are like my left and right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I associate I hear my facts from the one side and my creativity from the
other side.
Then what I've just found here with on Simon's YouTube, that one of the longer sessions on his YouTube is the power to understand others.
Yeah.
Where many of his others are a lot shorter than that.
Yes.
So thereby, I think you can rest the case of understanding people.
It's the longest topic.
And my music that I revert to when I go into a space would
Okay.
be Queen and Vivaldi.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
And it's Vivaldi, the Four Seasons. Yeah.
And
And at this stage, I have 4 mentors, I think. Well, 5 if you separate Michelle and Ant. But I've got a friend that I really talk to about basically, well, almost anything. Then I've got my husband,
yes.
who is to me. And then I've got my bestie from primary school.
Wow.
That is one of the few people that really knows me.
Wow. That's a long
People
relationship.
think they know me, but they don't.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
So yeah, that's
Awesome.
me.
Thank you very much, Wilma. Right. George, Tessa, Marina, you can type it if you don't want to open up. Sonia. Yes, George.
Well, I think I found out tonight why women can't keep direction. So there's a problem there. Somewhere there's a problem with that side.
It depends from which perspective, nah?
Yeah.
That is your perspective.
If it's your own or mine, women can't keep direction, Wilma, you know that.
Oh, George, I'm not even going to comment.
I thought this hippocampus was a university for hippos, so I don't know.
And I saw it too. I thought, what a random word, and then I discovered it's actually the Greek word for a seahorse, and then the shape of your hippocampus is a seahorse. So it's so quite interesting.
But I mean, I agree with Wilma. I left and right brain. I adjust to whatever happens around me. So if something has to be analyzed, I do, and I get analytical and I just analyze the problem. And if I'm practical, I go to the other side. So
yeah,
it's you've got to use both sides. I mean, and yes, I don't know if I'm left or right side. I don't know, but I agree with Wilma. You use both brains, left and right, to compensate to sort something out, whatever your problem is.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree with that, George.
You do use both, but you've got an inclination that in terms of the combination, like George, in my opinion, you 70 left and 30 right. But that's me because of knowing you as an individual. Whereas if I look at Wilma looks to be more like a 50-50 or 45-55. Willie definitely is the other way around from you. Willie is 70% right and 30%. But that's just me, the way that I know you guys. So I take Wayne and Liz. They're the opposites. Wayne is 90%, 10% left, 10%. Liz is she's 60-40 or 70-30, but right brain, left brain.
Yeah.
This is just in terms of my knowledge of having dealt with you. Leonie.
Yeah.
Leonie is, although she has learned to do left brain in a job, she's more right brain naturally. She's more right brain. She's more like a 65-70%, 65% right brain, rest left brain. Sonia, you're the other way around. Sonia is 75-80% right brain, and she forces herself to go. So she's left brain. She forces herself by virtue of what she's learned to go right brain, but she's naturally left brain. Just things fall into place. She's organizational, etc. Marina, I'm just speaking of the people on the call that I know. Marina is
left brain a lot.
Left brain a lot, but it's not as high. So I'm going to go as like a 55-45 there. Can you guys see what I'm saying to you is that the percentage differs. If you look at Michelle and I, what would you say?
Opposites. No. Opposites. The absolute opposites.
Anthony, right brain 60-40, and Michelle 110 minus 10 left.
Exactly. And then I got to go to the right brainers to teach me how to go right brain. I'm as left brain dominant as left brain dominant can become. And then only then when I like, oh, I'm getting stuck here with too many facts, figures bogged down. I need to go and find some right brainers. They bring me right, and then I go on with the left brain again. But 100%.
You know what you describe yourself as is like Jaap and I are also absolute opposites, and we were described in by words that were given to us is that I'm the champagne and he's the black coffee. Now you call it champagne. Michelle is a black coffee and Ant is a champagne.
And trust me, you get black coffee every day.
Anthony and Shalane.
She's 120% left brain, if you want to know.
She functions a lot in the left
brain. And I weet jy kan my hoor. Tolletjies.
But it's good, Shalane, we can live there.
And Costa is fact figures.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give her 70% on that side, but she becomes very creative when it is asked for.
Yes.
But she's functional.
Yeah. It's like me as well. If you ask me to be creative, I can become extremely creative, but you need to get me there. And that's why, because I'm so left-brained, I can't do surprises. So if we've got to go on a holiday,
it must be a planned surprise.
In other words, he tells me what we're going to do, what I must pack, where we're going to go, and then when we get there, I'll say, "Oh, what a nice surprise!"
Yeah, no, she's terrible. Okay, it comes back to feeling in or out of control.
Yeah,
Michelle hates being out of control.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, like you guys know, I'm a D and she's an I, or I'm choleric and she's sanguine. The number one thing that a sanguine detests vehemently is being controlled. What's the most natural thing that a choleric does? They control. So yeah.
And so he gets all the awards, Liz.
Like I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example of what happened to Michelle the other day. She's busy working, she's leaning over a desk, she's concentrating, and she's busy writing down formulas and what have you. And somebody stands next to her, and Michelle says, "Can I help you?" "Yes, I just want to give you a hug." And she says, "No, I'm busy." This person was so offended. But the person needs to understand from a behavioral point of stance, it was taking control of Michelle, who was busy, who was focused.
And I don't want to hug when I don't want to hug. Like, I'm a hugger, but catch me at tea time, lunchtime, on the way in, but not when I'm working and talking to someone else. Now you're standing there, I must stop everything to hug you. No, go find a hug somewhere else down the passage.
Which wasn't the best relationship building, but the fact is the person has to learn how behavioral types play a vital role, because the person was meant well. I want to hug you to give you love, but you can't demand love. You can't force your love on somebody.
And not when I'm working. Like, listen, the left brain is functioning. There's no creativity of like arm hug around. No, that's too much. Like,
But something quite interesting here that as I described it just now, but her kids are very different.
Yeah.
So now she's trying to get herself to the other side to accommodate the children.
Yeah.
And the challenge that brings with it.
Yeah.
Because she's got small, I think she's the only one in this group that's got small children.
Wow.
They're 7 and 5.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're very different kids.
Well, that was very interesting. Thanks again.
Who else? Marina? Anybody else going to type in? George has answered. Marina, Costa, Sonia. What did you learn, Marina?
I just maybe, well, definitely learned or realized actually that my brain was becoming brain dead.
Mm-hmm.
The academy kickstarted it again. So
true.
The concentration and thinking, but it is absolutely wonderful and I enjoy it. and I needed that. So it just
Awesome.
made me realize that how
Awesome.
amazing that is.
Awesome. Nice.
Thanks.
Great.
I just wanted to say, when Vilma talked about the children, my two children are that different. My daughter is creative and very, very similar to me, sanguine, outgoing, ready for anything. And my son is very choleric. And you mustn't change the schedule or even the time. No, it doesn't work that way.
No.
He can and snap it on you, and I've changed this and this, but you dare not change anything that you've planned. It's got to go according to what we've said it's going to be.
Yes.
Did we have fights when he was a teenager, until I realized, hey, it's okay, just stick to the program. I can manipulate him very nicely and very kindly to go my way, but it's the way that you approach it.
Approach it, exactly.
And just by putting it, because I started reading Personality Plus when they were about 12 or 13. So I worked through that one, and then we came to the 5 love languages. So it was like, kabang, okay,
Kabang.
I've got you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It helps. It really helps.
Does.
To read.
It really does. Awesome.
But sometimes we look at something, forgive me using myself here as an example, but when we used to go and leave, I used to have a schedule of exactly what we'll do on day 1, day 2, day 3. And people misread that is that I am a C, that I'm very analytical of nature, what have you, but they missed it. I'm activity driven. My love language is I feel fulfilled when I do things. I'm a doer of things that makes me feel that I'm alive. Whereas if Michelle goes and leaves, I want to do nothing. Leave me alone. And she doesn't want to be with people, which was the most amazing thing for me to learn about Michelle, who normally is in public, encourages people, influences people. But the moment she rests, and we found it out through Myers-Briggs, that she's actually an introvert. She wants to be away from people to rest.
Yeah.
So you need to really get to understand your holistic framework
Picture of who you are.
Picture of who you are and how you can put together. You cannot just look at yourself in one way and say, use any analysis, this, whatever. Don't put yourself in a box. You need to look at the overflow and how these all mesh together to fully understand how you are. Because if you saw my list, they would have said, oh, high C, melancholy. He's just making sure and forcing everybody, but it's not the fact. It was I wanted activities because I like adventure.
Yeah.
The way it is.
Well, I think that's how you planned your trip to the snow and all that.
Exactly.
You told us afterwards when you came back.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
George, I don't know if Tessa wants to add anything. Leonie, Sonia, Costa, you want to add just one thing that you got, and then we can wrap it up. You can type in if you don't want to talk. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Costa says the session was very informative and would like to start to stimulate my kids' minds as well. Like me, I can't think straight with music around me all the time, but my kids might be different, and I need to take into consideration as well. And noticing my kid, what size is them. Absolutely. I mean, when we had the 4 kids, everyone had a different radio station playing in the house. I'm like, how can you just, like now, if I'm at home, I don't even put a sound on. I just want so much peace and quiet. I would rather hear the birds chirp or something else like that. Whereas going to my kids' house, like my one daughter still, we're there, we're talking. Where's the music? Where's the music? Why is the music on? Play the music. Turn it. I'm like, why do you need the music in the background? But that's her stimulant. That's what keeps her balanced. And it's so interesting. Cool. Thanks, Costa, for that.
Michelle? Just the last thing from me. Can I make a hug appointment with you?
Tea time, coffee time, never in my office. Okay, so in the foyer, but never in my office, never in the academy, never when I'm talking to someone. Just don't do it.
Did he pick up? Never. Just saying.
2 minutes before 9 tomorrow morning.
That's chopped. 2 minutes before 9.
Okay, the period 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
For 2 minutes.
That's awesome.
Great,
awesome.
guys.
Leonie, anybody else want to add before we wrap up? It's 10 past, but thank you, guys. Great session. And
Time
like I
flies. So
time
enjoyed
flies.
this.
Exactly, time flies. But thanks for your input and thanks for your sharing. And it really is amazing how, yeah, just simple things in your life every single day can trigger off certain things. And if we don't process, we don't learn. I mean, I also forgot about the hippocampus, and I'm like, what is this? And it's like, oh, it's a seahorse. Like, I have 2 seahorses, and I don't
The
even like the sea.
plastic?
Yeah, made of plastic. No wonder I don't like the sea. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you so much. Leonie, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to add on to what Willie said earlier about the seahorse in Knysna. If you look in the Knysna Lake, where they are situated, it's in a little protected corner, also secluded. Like when Willie alluded to saying you need to protect it, look after it, and it's so awesome actually. And if you now know where in the lagoon they are, how protected they really are, and even in the shape, in the spot where they are. It's actually awesome. So that was just nice, Billy, when you alluded to that.
And you know, I still need to write I'm going to write some short stories on God says, look at my creation and learn from it, because this is another story to learning how naturally a seahorse protects itself, how, as you quite rightly said, it goes with the flow and the stimulus, and it feels what's going on around us and that kind of thing. And here God's put 2 seahorses left and right on our head. It's like, what? Yeah, it's crazy. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Stay blessed. Till next week.
Thanks for that.
I'm now going to go climb into bed.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Celia.
Bye. Bye.
My seahorses. Bye.